So thank you very much for everyone attending today. So Michael has very kindly volunteered to do a talk for us. So Michael and I have both completed the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, and he put a post out across the network saying that he was happy to volunteer his services and demonstrate the value of process mapping. So it's something I'd wanted to do for a long time, but hadn't got around to. When I heard all this, I said, would you be happy to share this again? Because I'm sure there'd be a lot of people across our network that'd be happy to hear this. So here we are. So Michael is based in the Northwest, and they are a software development house that's producing custom software across CRM, project management, and customer portals. But yeah, so he is doing this just out of the kindness of his own heart. He's not doing this necessarily as a sales pitch, but if ever you were wanting any of those things, then it'd be nice to share a bit of support for Michael. So I'll hand over to you now, Michael. So I'm not sure if you want to share your screen.
I will. Thanks, John. That's brilliant. So hello, everyone. Good morning. It's rubbish weather, so you might as well be sitting in front of a screen. So yes, thanks very much for the intro. I'll just share my screen. I need to share this one, and then is that right? Can everyone see that? Okay. Oh, am I right?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, hang on. Sorry. Share the screen. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Is that right?
Yes. There we go.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, we go. Right. Thank you very much. Sorry about that, everybody. Yes. So thank you, John, for the intro. So today is an overview about creating a process map, a simple process map. I don't know of whether your experiences in process mapping or understanding how to go about it, but just to give you a bit of background as to why I'm going to be talking about this. Just to explain that our business, we were a service-based business originally. We were delivering software and we were delivering websites for our customers. And what we were discovering was that each time we were going about delivering a piece of software or a website, we would do it in a way that we have always done it. However, as we started to grow and we got more and more people in our business, we found that we were doing things in similar ways, but each time slightly differently. And depending on who was involved in the particular project was the particular way that they did it. Now that is an inhibitor to growth because one, it requires cost and to train and to have your people learn a way of doing something their own way and bring that in. If they're moving across teams, then there is inefficiencies because everyone does it slightly differently. We don't get a good visibility as management in terms of efficiency and productivity. And also if someone leaves the organization, then they take that knowledge base with them, and we have to then retrain those people that come in. So we set about quite an extensive process of mapping our own processes, and then from that we then help our customers now in the process mapping piece before they embark on a software project, because many customers will say, I need a piece of software to improve productivity, whether that be a CRM or a project management system or a resource management system. However, they won't have mapped their process, and therefore the system that they take on isn't fit for purpose. And inevitably, the people that were asked to use it within their organizations will use it for a bit and then revert back to what they've always done. So it'll be a complete waste of time and money. So we recommend strongly that businesses understand their processes and map them before they embark on any investment for their digital products to help them with that process. So that's a bit of background, and I'm going to just take you through a few slides now on how to get started, because many businesses will say, yeah, it's something we want to do, but we don't know where to start. It feels insurmountable. So let's get cracking. If it if I can just, sorry, move the slides across. Doesn't seem, there we go. So first of all, why create a process map? Well, I've talked about that already, but I'll just go over a few more things. So it allows you to scale because it takes away that reliance on individuals. And when someone comes in, they can just slot into the business and have a set process that they can follow. It improves productivity because everyone's doing it the same way. It helps you choose the right systems, like I just described. It helps potentially with requirements for standards and certifications. It makes any process documentation reader friendly because it's a map, it's a visual representation, which is very helpful. And it gives your people a structure to demonstrate their expertise and creativity. And this is really important. You're not turning your people into robots. And that was the sort of, that's the key takeaway. It's not to try and limit the creativity of the people that you employ and the people in your team. It gives them a framework to work within, to know what is their responsibility, what they're accountable for, and how they move the action across the process, through the process. It just means that they know who's doing what, and it allows for that freedom to focus on what they do best, and that's a really important message. It helps identify where improvements can be made. It reduces costs, and it improves team performance and employee satisfaction because everyone knows where they stand. Everyone knows what is required of them, and they can enhance their offer to the business. So how do you get started? Well, I'll just give you a little bit of an overview in terms of the symbols that you will use. And there are many more than this, but in terms of a simple process map, we would recommend just use these. It's a very good starting point, and it doesn't clutter and makes clutter your mapping activity, and it's very easy for people to follow and use. You can add things in the future, but these are the only ones that we use in our business. So first of all, you've got roles. Now a role is a function of the job, and it's not a job description, or it's not an individual. So a role might be telesales, a role might be account management, but it might not be the only thing that an individual does. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this earlier. Please put any questions you might have in the chat, and we will deal with those at the end, because I can't see the chat at the moment, but if I can deal with those at the end for you. Swim lanes. So we've got roles, and then you've got swim lanes. Now, swim lanes is what each role is responsible for. So people who have a role do not move out of their swim lane, and therefore that's very clear. Shows on where the responsibility and accountability lies for each step in the process, and that is really important because where you get inefficiencies quite often is when people jump swim lanes to try, in their interest, to try and speed up the process in some way. But if they speed it up and they take responsibility for a particular activity that there shouldn't be, they will then disrupt the process further down the line because no one knows where everyone stands and things will fall through the gaps. So it's really, really important to have these very clear lines of accountability. Then you've got events. An event is simply the start and end of the process. Then you've got activities, and these are the things you use most in your process map. And this is a job to do in the process. So it won't be a specific, too granular. It won't be a checklist of many things. It will just be enter details into CRM. Might be, enter customer details into CRM. Might be one of the activities which will have a responsibility of someone. It won't tell them what to enter. It'll just be a much more of a sort of overview of the job that's required. Then you've got decisions, and this is when the process could go in one of two ways, depending on what the decision is. So if you, for example, submit a proposal, is that proposal accepted? If it's yes, the process goes in one direction. If it's no, then it goes in another. So you will start to see those as you start to build out your process where the decisions need to be made. Connectors, they're just something that connect all of the components within the process map and show a direction. And then you've got two other things which are worth using. The first one is a predefined process. So this might be something which is more than an activity, but you don't want to have set it out within that process. It will be something else. So it might be for example, once you've secured a customer in the customer acquisition process map, there'll be an activity or a predefined process to add them to the account system, and there might be some number of people involved in adding them to the account system. But for the sake of this process map, it's going to complicate it and confuse people if you start to put all of that in. So all you do is use one of those symbols and just says, you know, submit to accounts team for processing or something like that, and then that potentially could have another process sitting behind it, but it doesn't necessarily have to. I'll show you how this might work in a process map example. And then the final one is a document, which is an output, whether that be digital or printed, but it's something that doesn't move the process along, but is something essential to the process. So it might be invoice sent, purchase order sent, that sort of thing, or a report, something like that as part of the process. So it's a good tool to use. So there are the symbols. So how do you go about doing it? Now this slide coming up there's lots of steps. Well, it's 11 steps, and it's a lot of words, but I think it's important that it shows. All you need to do is have these 11 steps, and you can create your own process map. So first of all, you choose a process. Don't try and map your entire business on one process map. There's no point. It will over clutter it. You confuse yourself. Drill down to something really finite, something small within the organization that will deliver value straight away once you start mapping it. And it might be acquiring a customer, it might be fulfilling an order, it might be delivering that service, whatever you provide, from start to finish. But don't try and do from customer inquiry all the way through to service or product delivery. Break it up a little bit and choose something that everyone can understand, and it helps get you started, because you can add to it in the future, but start simple. So acquiring a customer and order for fulfillment. So give it an active name, and an active name meaning this is how you do something. It just helps with the way that people understand, when those people are following it, it helps with them how they understand what they're trying to achieve or what the process is trying to achieve. The second one, and this is important, really important, bring all those who are going to be involved in the process together. This is not an exercise where you bring in someone externally, say map all our processes, give them to us and then go away. It's got to be a collaborative effort. Yes, it needs some leadership, and it needs someone who takes responsibility for putting this in place, but ultimately the people who are going to follow that process have to be empowered to influence that process or feed back into that process, particularly if there's nothing that's been created already. If you don't have that base to work from, your people are the most important information resource for the process. And by including everyone, it gives everyone accountability for that process, and it helps with them understanding what's required and identifying areas of inefficiency. So once you've brought everyone together, you will define when the process starts and when it ends. So if, for example, it's acquiring a customer, the start of the process is the harvesting or the prospecting activity, so customer details, so prospecting details identified or customer data added or whatever that might be, all the way through to them converting into a customer. And then once they're a customer, then that's a different process, and that's where it ends. So you need to be clear on when it starts and when it finishes. And then this is the sort of tricky part, but it doesn't need to be. And this is about when you start to list out all the steps in getting from the start of the process to the end. Now, this is an exercise which you're not going to get right first time. And it's important that you do it in a collaborative way. And a really good way of doing it is put it in post-it notes. So you write out the task. Right, we do this one, then we do this. Oh no, hang on, we don't do it this way. We also do this. And so you start to list out all the steps, and it's almost like a checklist. We do this, then we do this, then we do this. Don't get upset or don't get confused or disappointed if you start to go off in different tangents. That's okay. You've got to list out all the activities involved in delivering that process, because once you've got that in terms of a list, then you can start to order it in the right way, and then you can start to identify particularly where decisions need to be made. So for example, if you're going down your steps and you realize, actually, if the proposal is accepted, we go down in this way. If the proposal isn't accepted, we go down this way. That is a very clear thing of a decision. And you will identify that by just marking that as a decision. And you'll have to do the steps outside for each option. And you go down that way. And it's not as complicated as that might sound. I'll show you some examples, but you will start to see where decisions should be made. And even if you miss that, it doesn't matter. You can come back to that. But you start to put your steps in a sequential order, and then identify where decisions need to be made. And then you allocate roles. Who does what? And you just put little initials on each of the post-it notes once you've got it in order. And you can have roles that jump steps. So you could have a account management role which might do steps 4 and might do steps 8. It doesn't have to be in a linear way, because we know that businesses don't work like that. So activities can move between roles as you go, but only one role can do one activity. You can't have 2 roles doing the same thing. So then you start to draw a baseline map. So you draw your swim lanes, and then you start to work around doing your mapping. And I'll show you some examples. I'll show you an example that we've done before, that I've got here, and adhering to best practice, which I'll come on to. But there's plenty of applications out there that you can use. This one here, creately.com. It's free to use as a free option, really easy, and it gets you started. So you can start to see how you can map it, or you can just draw it. Just draw it on a whiteboard, draw it on a piece of A3 paper, and then start to move it around. But it is, once you start to take it from a written list into a map, it does transform, and you can start to visually, I don't know whether it's the fact you can start to, like the mind mapping type effect, you get to see visually how things move along and areas of inefficiency and things that it can improve. So then you look at your map with your team, you can look at how you might improve it and refine it, and then you share it with the rest of the business, and you review your systems that you've got now to make sure that they can support this process. They're not getting it in the way. You're not having to put data in in different places and all the different times. Can you see a flow of data all the way through, for example? And then as you work to it, you monitor and update the map as things change. So I get a lot of questions as to, once we've done the map, what do we do with it? Well, I'll tell you what we do in our business. We don't put it in a drawer, and we don't put it on the wall. We share it with the team, for who are responsible for that process. And then what we do is, if something doesn't go right, or if something starts to impact on our productivity, we return to the process map, because our people are smart people. They know what they're doing day in, day out. And we've been clear on what it in a way that everyone knows what is required and how to get from the start to the end, in the most efficient way possible. And that is the sort of crux of it, because if you don't have that, you can't grow your business. So yeah, that's how we use it. And we also then have a weekly operations meeting, but every quarter we'll return to a process just to double check that it's working fine and whether any refinements need to be made. But it's always there. It's always in the background, that if we need it, we can return to it. And if things are starting to go wrong, particularly in times of stress, times of change, so thing that's worked particularly well for us is that we've had very clear processes for the way that we deliver our software development activity. And by having lockdown, where we're all working remotely in different locations, we've been able to take our process map and use that as our guide, or aide memoir, to delivering the work as efficiently as we possibly can. So that's been a real benefit for us, for example. So they're the steps, and I'll share this with John, and he can distribute if that's required. Some areas of best practice, and this is around how you go about doing a process map and making it as effective as possible. So the first thing is to try and make it as easy and simple as possible. If you can easily add complication and complexity to it, but start simple would be my overriding advice. Because if you don't start simple, it just becomes overfacing. You can't get anywhere to the end, and people get, oh, this is too much for me. So that might even mean not identifying roles to start with, just identifying the process, then trying to look at roles at a later date. I'm just going to have to sneeze in a minute. I do apologise. I might have to mute my microphone. I think I will now. Hang on. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, make your process maps as easy and simple as possible. Always include the key stakeholders when mapping the process. I've already talked about that. This is a really important one. Don't make your tasks or your activities too granular. They're more than a task. They're something to move the process along. You make them too granular. One, you'll make your map too complicated, and two, you will put off and alienate potentially your staff, because you'll be too prescriptive. It almost looks at micromanagement. You do this, then you do that, and you do that. And what will happen is people will feel constrained by all the different checklists that they might have to complete. And inevitably, what they do is that they don't deviate, and they don't use their own initiative and their own instincts when something crops up which is outside of the perfect step process. So yeah, just be broad in terms of, okay, we've got to get the activity from here, or the process from here to here, and this is the thing that we have to do. And that might be, you know, in terms of design, if you're a design agency, I will do first draft of designs or concepts, and then, but you're not going to say how you go about doing those designs and concepts. That is within the realm of the individual, or the sort of the expertise of the designer. Okay, so the next one is always use the correct process map symbols, just so you've got some consistency and some clarity across all your maps. Ensure there's a logical flow through the process. So what you don't want are multiple arrows coming out of one activity. You want one activity arrow, one arrow out. You can have multiple arrows in as long as there's one arrow out. So it's a very clear idea of where it's going. The only place you have multiple arrows out is when you've got a decision, because you can have yes or no, and that's as simple as that. And then you want to be probably moving either left to right or top to bottom. So there's a logical flow of where the process is going. It doesn't always work like that, because you might do this or this, because different roles might need to do different tasks, or sorry, different activities which come later in the process. So it might have to move up and back down again. But ultimately, the start should be here, the bottom, the finish should be there, or start should be here, finish should be there. I've said all this before, an activity can only be delivered by a single role. This is where you get real inefficiency, and it starts to fall down if you have two people doing the same thing, because no one does it. No one's accountable for it. So that's what you really want. You want to be having an activity that does a single role, and that's why these swim lanes are so important. And include all the roles involved in the process. So an example in our business historically was that we would map from acquiring a customer through to ready to start the work. So we would map that one, but we'd also then map delivering the work. So how we would deliver a piece of work. So for example, for a website, we would do specification, the brief, we would do some wireframes, and we would do some research, and then we do some initial designs, and then we do some sometimes do the concepts, we then do the user journeys, etc., etc. There's all those different steps. But what we were doing, we were mapping all of those different steps in terms of delivering a website. But we would then get to, I would say, a month's worth of work, and then issue our invoice. And so the finance person said, why are you invoicing here when you've done all of this work here, and at risk then of losing all of that work without getting paid for it? You're absolutely right. So finance is a role on our process, on our sort of website delivery process, there's a role for finance, and that finance activity that comes in very early, so we know that the project will be funded from the outset. And that's something that we forgot to do. Just because we're so keen to win the work and do it, we didn't necessarily look at for the benefit of the business. Are we going to get paid for this, and are we going to get paid in the right timely manner? So that was a really good one for us for the business. So yeah, make sure all the roles are involved in the process. Okay, so business processes that you can map: acquiring new customers, maintaining customer relationships, so CRM sort of work, fulfilling an order, how you fulfill an order, handling a customer complaint, the process to that, or sort of ticketing or bug tracking or something like that, onboarding an employee, recruitment and selection of new staff, providing customer service or product development. There are oodles of others. My recommendation is choose one, and choose one that is going to have the biggest impact earlier on, as early on. So it will be around acquiring customers or delivering, order delivery, whether that be service or product. If you can streamline that and get the right systems in place to deliver and make that as efficient and effective as possible, you're laughing. And then you can start to see how your business can grow, because you can either bring more people in and get that to grow and get more people to deliver that service if you're a service provider, or you can look at where efficiencies can be made. Can you automate things? Can you automate emails out to customers? Can you get customers to log into something and fulfill their own order requests, for example? Can you streamline the steps involved? And that's a way of really starting to be more and more effective. So here is an example of a process map. What does it look like? So I've given you a very simple one here for acquiring customer acquisition. It's a completely made up business with different roles. But in this business, there is a telesales role, there is a sales role, and then there's an account management role. So this is how they acquire their customers. Generally, doesn't mean they get customers. They don't get customers in other ways, but this is a process that their business delivers, and therefore they can make it more efficient. So process starts here, green. Okay, when prospect data is added. So there's prospect data is added into a CRM, and the first decision to be made is, has it been cleansed? If it hasn't been cleansed, then no, I send it for cleansing. And then it goes in here, and we assign a user to qualify and align products to that prospect data. So before any contact is made, these prospects have been given a telesales user to look at those, qualify them, and get out there and start contacting them. So contact is made, and it's recorded in the CRM with the aim to set an appointment. Okay. Now, there's going to be multiple contacts, multiple methods of contacting them. You can see here in this example, we don't say that, we just say contact. Yeah. So if they've contacted them and an appointment is set, then they move down the process. If it's not set, then are they a future prospect? So I can't get in contact for the first time, and then I diary for a future contact. Now that cycle keeps going around and around, and it might be that at some point we say after 5 contact attempts, nothing happens, they're not a future prospect, we delete that prospect. Yeah. So you can see here, we've made that decision to end the process right there. But if an appointment has been set, okay, we move them along, and then suddenly it's someone else's role. So in the CRM, you change the status from prospect to lead, for example, and that lead then goes into the pipeline, and the salesperson picks that up, whoever that salesperson is in that role, and they'll go and meet that prospect because an appointment's been set. They go and meet them to prepare a proposal. Has the proposal been accepted? No. So refine the proposal. Has the proposal been accepted? No. Are they a future prospect? No. Delete them. Are they have they been accepted? Yes. Has the proposal been accepted? Yes. We move it down. It's recorded and added to their order book. So it's either a different system or it's a different process. and the salesperson records the sale and claims the commission. So that is a predefined process. So by recording the sale and claiming commission is something else, but we don't set out exactly what it is in this process. Okay, so once the sale is recorded, it moves to account management. And account management, so it goes from lead opportunity to sale to customer. So then the account manager is assigned a user, and they pass on the sales information. So that's there to an individual, and then they set up the customer on the project management system, and that is again another process by setting them up. And they issue an audit report. So it might be the first thing that they do as part of the customer acquisition process is once they've got the customer, they do an audit. So it shows what they need to deliver. So say, for example, this was an energy company. They've won the work. The first thing they need to do is audit what energy that they need, what they require going forward. So where all their energy, I don't know, energy meters are, for example. And that is a report, which is an output. So it doesn't move the process anywhere else. It's just a report. So issue a report, schedule a follow-up for renewal when the contract is up for renewal, and then it ends. So the service delivery has gone somewhere else, but the follow-up is when it comes for renewal. So say it's an annual contract, they come back and then they schedule a follow-up, and that is customer acquisition, and that's done. So everyone can follow that process. And then when you bring someone in, your role as telesales, you can say, right, as a telesales, this is what is required of your role. This is you cleanse the data, you add them, you set an appointment, etc., etc., and you can then allow them to build out on that process to build into their expertise and creativity. So I hope that gives you an idea. I'm more than happy to take any questions or personal requests for info in terms of how you go about process mapping, or if you want to ask me further insight into how you might go about it for your business, depending on the businesses that you're in. And this is a bit about us. This is who we are. And we've done it. We've been there and we've done it. So that's how we know what it's about. So thank you very much.